Hello, this is Inside News with Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones, of course. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Dale Matthews.
Okay, good. Okay, so we have been playing back for you excerpts from that Tuesday where the Grants Pass version of GOP invited candidates, blah, blah. Anyway, here's a little exchange that took place during that, which shows that sometimes there's a difficulty in understanding what's going on around you. Here's that little bit of an exchange.
But the public is thinking, wow, we'd like to have some input on this. If you guys are going to say, well, economic development, we think this business or that cost should get it. Maybe let the public, have a month to have something to say about it. Like the preacher at a wedding would say, does anyone have any reason this should not happen?
As a commissioner, that stuff is done. That
Okay.
has been done.
Okay.
As it's not like all of a sudden, no, how come you don't let, for crying out loud? It's done all the time. There's
That's what I wanna
never
hear,
a
'cause
decision made. I think it's a great idea. Let's go vote on it, report, okay. But they're not done that way. I mean, good grief almighty, that's the frustration part sometimes.
And the truth, I wasn't part of that process, so I didn't see it
Well,
myself.
right, and I've never been to road roasters either. I
Ask
don't know.
about Cameron Camp.
Okay, so that little exchange there was about economic development. So what we're going to talk about on our show.
And I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying, and one of the most notable things about it is that Viken, I mean, if you could see the whole thing, he's just asking a question. He wasn't, jumping on anybody or anything like that. He was just asking a question. And you saw the way Keith Heck reacted to it. It's like overboard.
It's a sensitive area, and that's why this is over my shoulder here, because economic development, the commissioners have agreed among themselves in the little back room, which is why I go there, that economic development can be spent on practically anything, because everything's economic development, right? Except they are not giving economic development money to the sheriff, except they've said that we're not developing economically because the sheriff doesn't have enough funding, except that they don't want to spend any of that money on the sheriff. Reason? What is the reason for that, Mike? What's your theory of why they
hang on a second.
Any money on the sheriff?
I'm still doing the math on that last thing you were saying there. That doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. That's correct. So if there's an emergency,
it does not.
People from each department should be tapped and said, go over and work in the emergency department, which is the sheriff's department. Every bit of extra money that comes in go to the emergency. Every meeting should start with the emergency. There should be constant briefings about the emergency. They should be on KJO talking about the emergency. They are not. They don't. It's not happening. But there's an emergency, and Cheryl Walker to the rescue. So we're going to get to the meat of that story in a moment, and there's a little bit of a delay, so you're used to that with us. Mike, if the IRS came in and looked at you and your company, let's suppose that they did what they've done recently with the county, saying we're going to go back and look at 2013 to be sure that the people who are working for you as vendors, that you're filing the paperwork correctly. This is the IRS now, at a time when the county is under a lot of financial scrutiny. There's candidates that are saying, we're going to do a forensic analysis as soon as you guys are out the door. Get prepared, everybody, for shredders to run all night long. If the IRS came in and said, we're going to look at what you're doing, and if you were the finance director for the county, Arthur O'Hare, would you lie to the IRS, Mike?
No, I wouldn't. Is there some evidence that Arthur O'Hare has been lying to the IRS?
Well, let's take a look at what he said about the IRS coming in and looking through our books for 2013, and they had kind of a little question for Arthur O'Hare, the finance director.
I told him that we were very, very careful along those lines.
that we do not allow employees to become vendors. That's just a standard. And then she says, well, I'm looking here at Peter Allen. Okay, except for him. He's an elected official. Different. But I wish you had told me Peter Allen before I made that. But so we're following up on that.
Now, what did he say? I wish you had told me it was Peter Allen that you were talking about. He's an elected official. Peter Allen is the county surveyor. He works half-time. He's an elected surveyor, go figure. And he's also one of the preferred vendors for the county. And so when the IRS asked, do you use employees? Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, in what department? I mean, what does he provide surveying services to them? Because that would seem to be redundant if they're already paying him to be a surveyor, and then he's providing surveying services.
Now, that's really good point, Mike. Yes. He is our elected surveyor, and he is the director of the surveyor's office, and he's also a preferred vendor to the county. Well, let's put it another way. When
but I mean, does he sell them Coca-Cola, or is he a surveyor for? I mean, are both in the same? And perhaps I'm getting a little far afield here, but what is he a vendor? In what field is he a vendor?
In surveying. I know.
Okay. Yeah. That's
yes. Odd. He's an elected surveyor. We pay him to do surveying, and also we occasionally have a contract with him that what they do is they go through the various surveying companies. There are not that many, and they take them one at a time. My understanding is they don't put it out for bids. They just take them one at a time. And occasionally, oh, look, again, it's Peter Allen, who was an elected official that we're paying to do surveying, and now we're going to work with him and his company. Well, they asked this guy, they asked Arthur O'Hare, we're looking into, does anybody do this? Oh, no. We've got a strong policy about that. Oh, well, what about this guy? Oh, says Keithick. Oops. Well, I wish I'd known that you were asking about that guy. Then I would have lied more artfully. Nice. Okay, so his explanation was, well, that doesn't count because he's an elected official. How would you feel if the county contracted with Cheryl Walker, an elected official, to do hemp services to her private company?
I don't think elected officials should be providing any private services to the county outside of what it is that they're doing for their job. A commissioner shouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, that would be seemingly a conflict of interest, I would think.
You would think so, especially if they're doing the same thing. Now, if he was doing county brain surgery, that might be a little different, maybe. But this seems to be at the core of the question the IRS was asking. And he said, no, we don't do that. And then they said, well, what about this guy? Yay for the IRS this time. Oh, well, except for that guy. The county surveyor that sells surveying services from his private company to the county. And what they asked the last time he did that is they said, boy, this bill seems really, really, really high. Oh, well, I guess that's what we just pay. That's what they said. So you need to decide, are you happy with that kind of relation with the federal government and with this fellow who was head of this department that just got caught telling the IRS, I don't think I'm exaggerating, a lie. No, we don't allow that. Well, what about this guy? Oh, yeah. There have been times where people have said, now, wait a minute, how can we trust how the county is spending our money? And Cheryl Walker is the first to step forward, and the other two have done it too. Oh, but we have auditors. That's not the same as the IRS, but this says the functional equivalent. Well, the auditors missed what the commissioners told us was happening with that guy, Herb Carter, writing blank checks. I don't know. They said it. At the fair, grounds. The fair department, apparently, it's not a department, it's supposed to be an independent entity, was keeping separate bank accounts that they weren't telling the county about. Oh, really? Now, we had an audit firm come in. They didn't find this. How good can the auditors be if they're not seeing these things? For years? Really? This is why we don't trust them.
Well, you know, an auditor can only audit the set of books that somebody gives to them. If you have if you got two sets of books, that makes it very, very difficult for the auditor to find something that, of course, is not entered in book number 1.
That's right. And to just use another example with this, if you go down to look at the vehicles at the Public Works, and Rob Brandis has changed the license plates from one vehicle to another, what honest person would change the license plate just before an inspection? What honest person, Rob Brandis, would do that? Well, if you say anything more about that, I'm going to sue you. On what grounds? Because you're going to prove to everybody that honest people do that? Rob Brandis? Really? Head of Public Works? I'm not saying that all of these characters never do anything good, but it's that chocolate swirl thing that's not chocolate in the middle of your vanilla. Okay, so that's issue number 1 in the little back room on the big meeting of the week, which is the admin meeting. And you notice that Simon Hare is not there, and it's just Keith and Cheryl. The second one, looking at my notes here, please pay very close attention to what these are all little snippets. They go by so quickly, unless you listen quickly. I don't know how that's done, but unless you listen quickly, you're going to miss this. Please make a list of money that the sheriff is going to get. Oh, really? That's coming in. We're in a fiscal emergency. It's a law enforcement emergency. Let's listen to the money that the sheriff is going to get. They don't talk about this a lot. Here we go.
We've got a supplemental budget that we still need to bring forward, and that will have to happen sooner rather than later. So I'll be working on getting that time frame pinned down so that we can, the main issue on that supplemental, of course, is the sheriff with the GP jail bed contract and the additional SRS money and the Justice Reinvestment Act money that we received in this last year and that we've incorporated into the budget, but it needs to be formalized through the supplemental.
Okay, did all you folks get that?
I got most of that, although I'm dealing with a little bit of that stuff.
Sorry about that. I apologize to you, Mike. Okay,
No
so
worries.
SRS money, Justice Reinvestment money, okay, and these things are coming into the sheriff. And so maybe it isn't quite as dire. You know, I've been asked by some of the other candidates to put together a letter so we can send one to the governor saying Cheryl Walker is a short timer. And she's trying to get you, Governor, to declare an emergency down here. Here are some of the facts. And this is an interesting fact. It looks like we're not immediately running out of money. It is not a crisis right now. It is not a fiscal emergency. And if the governor has a crystal ball that's clearer than they have in Washington, D.C. about when we're going to get more money and if we're going to get more money, and if she knows for sure or not, then maybe she'd be okay with this. Except, of course, that's not the way the people here vote. That's nice. Okay, the next thing is a bit longer. Those were quick, but that's all they said about it. What am I supposed to do? Play it slow motion? Economic development money is being spent on government departments. They're shoring up government departments. They're running a little short on funds, calling it economic development. This is lovely. Here we go.
One of the questions I did have, economic development on our budgets, we've been giving our internal departments, the 4 of them, planning, fair, airport, parks. We used to give them 40. We cut it back to 20 and said, this has been like 4 years ago, we cut it back to 20 and said, any additional give us a project for that additional.
Now, listen real carefully to what he said. We used to give him $40,000 automatically. Spend it any way you want to. Well, times are tough, you see. So now we just give them $20,000 apiece for a total of $80,000 from economic development funds, because you're going to need those funds, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the fair supposed to be independent? Why are we shoring up the fair?
Because it's somebody's pet baby or something. I don't understand why should we be giving extra money to any of these departments? Listen, if we have a small budget and we don't have enough money to fund law enforcement, why are we giving extra money to all these other departments? Why aren't we saying, listen, we're getting less money, I need you to cut your budget by 10%. Oh, you can't do it? All right, well, then I'm going to have to do it for you, since you apparently cannot figure that out. No, this is what you do. This is what happens in the private sector. What happens to a lumber company when the building boom dies? Well, guess what? They're not selling lumber every day like they were before when there was a building boom. So what do? They have to get rid of people. That's how it works in the real world. I know you don't know anything about that, but that's how it works. And so if you have this money coming in, and listen, I made the point to Keith Heck the other night. He was saying, no, you can't do that. Well, they're talking about what Keith Heck said you can't do. And they're doing it right now. They're giving the money to other departments and calling it economic development. You tell me that you can't take that money and give it to the sheriff and call it economic development, or call it, watermelon on a stick, whatever you want to call it.
I'm going to let watermelon on a stick go, but okay. So here's the question to you, and to just stop thinking about watermelon on a stick. The seeds really cause problems. I'm
not very smart, so I have to, whatever comes to my head is what happens.
Terrible. Okay, so look.
Right.
It's hard to bite into it. Okay, all right, stop it. Okay, so I'm the one that's doing it, see, so I need to apologize. I'm sorry, everybody. Good night. There's a fiscal emergency. There's a law enforcement emergency. Is there an emergency that needs economic development over at the airport? It's an emergency. Is there an emergency that needs economic development money and planning? Is there an emergency in parks? They need economic development money. And what's the fourth one? Well, there's an emergency over at the fairgrounds, and they're going to need this emergency money, It's an emergency.
Yeah.
I was sitting there.
But if there's an emergency in those departments, it can't supersede the emergency that exists in law enforcement funding. It cannot.
But they're getting economic development money.
How can it be that? Right. I mean, how can the emergency at the airport, because they don't have a special machine that sweeps the rocks off the runway or something? How can that be a priority over a law enforcement emergency? And had they taken that 80
care of law enforcement, because the governor's going to take over our county and take care of law enforcement, because all of us knuckleheads won't vote for more money for these commissioners. We don't want to give them 2 dimes, because this is how they're spending the money. We can see it. It's right there in front of you.
Yeah, this is just another thing to add to the list of things that they are not spending, that they're of money that's available to them that they are not spending at the sheriff's department. You've got the road dollars. Okay, we all know that. Then there's the extra $1 million that came in of SRS money that they could have diverted some of that at least to the sheriff's department. And then you got this economic development money, and then you have the general fund money that was going to be spent on testing water. There is all kinds of money. Listen, We know now, obviously, because there's a proposal on the ballot that we spend a few cents 1,000 and put retired police officers into the schools. You tell me you can't take one of those same guys at the same price and put them in Cave Junction during the daytime and take your paid officer guy who the city of Cave Junction pays for, the contract deputy, and put him on the night shift. You tell me, I mean, I'm thinking of this right here, right? I'm drinking a Coke in my little back room where I'm doing this show, and I can think of that in 2 seconds, and they can't think to do that. Or is this an issue of will? I believe it is.
Well, see, I got this going for me. So, listen. This is how they're spending the money. And the most important thing to me is this is $80,000 is going to these departments, 4 departments. We just give it to them. That's a gift from economic development. It's just a gift. Then they can come back, I'm not making this up, and they can ask for more money for specific projects. Well, I've got a street sweeper thing that we need to revamp the building where we're supposed to be independent, but you're obviously backing us up. Why, we've got to take money, and they didn't even mention the library, and we need, and you've got to think now, if we put extra books in there with those children at the library, why, that's economic development, you know. It is? Yeah, and we want that money. I was there when they sat there with those commissioners. It was Dave Toller. Yeah, the infamous Dave Toller. And they said, he was on their committee. I was there when he said, here, I'm going to write the letter, and then you can send it from the library group, JCLI, to the county, and I'll write it for you. And then you ask me if we'll do this for you. He wrote the letter. And they said, we need $300,000. And if you give us that, we won't come back again. We'll go out to the public, and they'll support us. Then it turns out within about a year or so, the public wasn't supporting them. So they were back asking for more money. Well, sure, we'll give you more money. Nobody ever got a chance to vote on this. The way that you vote is saying, I'm going to give the library money, which I did, or $100. It's a lot of money to me. And I'm struggling to figure out how I'm going to get in the voters pamphlet. That's $300. So I gave them $100. Now, don't do it now. And they keep coming back for more money, more money, more money, because, you know, if you have extra little books in there for those little kids, I like little kids, that's our economic development. Really? And it's more important than law enforcement? They're going to get their money even
apparently
for it. Yeah, yeah. Even if you don't vote for it. So then they come back, these departments come back, and they ask for more money for individuals. So they get the 20 no matter what they're doing with it. No matter what they're doing with it. You haven't heard this suggestion from Arthur O'Hare. Arthur O'Hare. Wait till you hear his suggestions. This is unbelievable.
Just a question in my mind. Is there any consideration on an inflationary basis to say, we cut it back to 20 several years back, maybe now it's time to make it 25, just as to keep pace with their operational costs and their increased costs, so that
oh my God,
the standard payment was, or their standard contribution from economic development for those 4 departments would be 25 or
now when you think about that, Mike, from 20 to 25 is a 25% in 25% more.
Yes. Listen, these guys are running our county. These people could not run a business. These departments don't deserve to have some sort of an increase just because the money is there. That's what this is about. This is why this economic development thing, it's a slush fund. And I have to believe at this point, it was always meant to be a slush fund, that these people could slush around however they wanted to. It's ridiculous. If you have $300,000 and you have a law enforcement emergency, what is the rationalization for giving any of that to anything else, any other department inside county government? What is the rationale for that? You got some sort of a good reason why you can take money and go, oh, well, that's economic development if we give $20,000 to such and such department. It doesn't matter what it is.
They are not answerable
money
for how
is
they spend
there,
it.
and you, no, I understand that. No, but if the money is there and available and you can move it around arbitrarily from to wherever you want to and call it economic development, then what the heck is your rationale at all for not giving it to the sheriff? This is not an emergency. This is not an emergency to those people in that room who are telling us it's an emergency. They're lying to us. This is not an emergency to them, because that would come to your head just like that. Well, we're just going to have the planning department not get their $20,000 bonus money that they were, who knows what cannon they were shooting that out of at the airport, or whoever's getting this money. Don't do that. Stop doing that.
They
if you have an emergency, give that money to the sheriff. Case closed.
These departments routinely ask for an additional, this is, you just get it. They routinely ask for an additional 20, 40, 60, as much as, according to this time in the back room, I can't play all for you, $100,000 that they need to do something else in their department. And they're, hey, we got to hire a new sonographer here, for the meetings. And so we're going to need to
wait a minute. In addition to the 20 grand, up to 100,000 more?
Yep. Yes.
I mean, can you see watching this program that this is a complete and total utter fraud? Can you see it? I mean, if you can't, then there's not much I can do.
Why are you watching the show?
Are being just hoodwinked.
Economic development to bolster the budgets of county departments. Because when you think about it, they're all part of economic development.
County departments to the exclusion, though, of the sheriff's department. They don't give this money to the sheriff's department, do they, Dale?
No, they don't. And although they say that the reason we're not developing economically, people are moving out. Remember when Cheryl said that? They're leaving the area. Why companies won't come here? Why companies are folding up their businesses and leaving? Because we don't have economic development. We don't have a sheriff's department. And so, but we can't possibly give the economic development over to the sheriff, because why? It would solve part of the problem. And one more thing, Mike, you're going to love this. The money has gone from about $300,000. It's now going to be $400,000. You would think they would take that extra $100,000 at the very least and give that to the sheriff's department. What, are you crazy? They would never do that. I would.
Okay. You know what? Listen, if you are running for county commissioner and you cannot answer this question in the affirmative, then you have no business running for county commissioner. The question is, we get $400,000 of economic development money every single year. The county commissioners have been pumping that into local county departments. What is your solution? What would you do with that money? And if you don't answer, cut off all those other departments of all of that money that they're getting and funnel every red cent of it to the sheriff's department, you are unqualified. You don't belong being a county commissioner. Okay, that's pretty damn clear, because I'll tell you, this is so clear cut. This is so easy to understand that these people are lying to us, that they are shorting the sheriff's department of money specifically for the purpose of enhancing the perception of an emergency. You know it. I know it. Everybody who will look at this thing honestly understands that to be the case.
Well, here's what I see behind the scenes. So I'm going to try to walk a careful line here. What I'm seeing behind the scenes is that some of the people we know, not Mike and I, but some of the other people we know, are being quizzed by people who are brand new to running for a county position. In fact, they don't even come to the meetings. And one of the things one of our friends said to him is, well, why don't you watch this show? Because they tell everybody everything. In fact, they give you advice as a candidate because that's who they are. That's what they do. Well, I don't have time to watch that show. Why can't you just give me my bullet points? I'm paraphrasing, obviously, so I'll know what to say on the campaign trail. I don't want to do my research. I don't want to watch a 45-minute show, actually an hour. I don't want to watch that because that takes time. I don't have time to go to a county commissioners meeting and just sit there. I want immediate answers so I sound good on the dais when I'm asked a question. I'm not kidding you.
Okay.
So you're going to have a dozen candidates or more to choose from. Some of them look real good, look real young, look real, boy, I got it all going for me, great hair and all the rest of that. They don't know beans.
Yeah. Well, no, even worse than that. It's not what you know, it's who you are in your core. Who are you? Because if you're somebody who's going to walk in there and knowing that the sheriff's department needs to have money to fund this situation to help out in places where there are little hot spots in the county, if you know that and you're still willing to short the sheriff's department money because you wouldn't want to alleviate it in any way so that somehow we can get a levy passed at some point in the future, you're evil. Or you're a tool of evil. Well, one of the two. Yeah, I mean, really, you really are. I mean, if you see, listen, they tout the murder stats being up. Okay, if you really want to go there, if you really want to use that statistic, why don't you just say this? Okay, if you're not willing to take that funding out and give it to the sheriffs, well, then you're a murder enabler. How is that any different? How is that any different? You know, okay, well, you're on the side of murder then. I mean, listen, they use that tactic on us all the time because we won't vote for a levy. It's about time we turned it back on them. You know, if you're not willing to take that money, all that money out of, county departments and give it to the sheriff's department, well, then you are just, you're on the side of crime. You favor murder. You favor rape and pillaging and destruction. You know,
well,
that's your game.
Like that friend of Keith Heck's that said to me in the hallway in front of witnesses, he said, it's too bad that those people that were killed weren't the people that don't back a levy. How to say that? It's too bad that they're some of the people who were in favor of a levy, because the people who should be killed are in their homes are those people who are not for a levy. Look, I'm asked all the time. People say about me personally, about me. Well, all you do is complain. You guys never offer any suggestions.
Hello.
We never do,
you know,
Mike.
And so I guess watch the show. Now, you may not like the suggestion that I'm making. Maybe you got a perfectly good reason why road dollars shouldn't go to the sheriff. And we hear people like, you can't rob from Peter to pay Paul. or they say, the economic development money, that really needs to go to economic development. Well, that's just pure stupidity. Certainly somewhere there's money that is being spent on something. And listen, this is the stuff we know about, people. You know darn well that that there is money being wasted in county government, like there is in every county government, that could be funneled over to law enforcement if it were truly a priority. But the stuff, even the red light flashing stuff that says free money, available money, here's money that could go to the sheriff. They don't even take that stuff and give it to the sheriff. So they sure as heck ain't going to go looking for, money under rocks in places. But if they did, I guarantee you, because I'll tell you something, I believe that when they pared things down and things were really getting tight, they took it down to about 240 employees in the county. Well, they're already back up over 300. That's 60 employees. Why do we need that? If we're in a crisis, if we're in an emergency, why are they hiring people right and left? Why are we paying for, water testing that's going to go on for years and cost $500,000? Why are we doing that?
And let's be very
simple
clear.
questions.
Let's be quite clear about what happened to those people. That was not as a result of economic belt tightening. That's what they may want to make you think. That happened before Simon Hare was even here, but he took credit for it the first few days that he was there. What happened was, and it's helpful if you got somebody, anybody that knows what the truth is, and they can't dispute this because it is the truth. Though that wasn't economic belt tightening. That was because some knucklehead in the county government, when those people who were in that department, it was like over 100 people in one department, when they said, we don't think that you're treating us fairly, and I have no idea if they were being treated fairly. They said, we might go out on strike. And some knucklehead in the county government said, well, if you go out on strike, then we'll just replace all of you with scab workers. That was the wrong thing to say. So they sued the county because this stupid person said this stupid thing. And then they went out and formed this separate organization altogether that now still works for and that we still pay them. We just don't pay their salaries. But we also paid, I think, nearly $1 million that could have gone to the sheriff's department in reparations because one stupid person said one stupid thing.
Well, hang on just a second here, because I will tell you that what that person said wasn't stupid. What is stupid is that it's against the law to do it. Because I'll tell you something.
But you need to know the law.
Oh, of course you do. Of course you do. But listen, I got to tell you something. If I had my dream here, there would be some crazy stuff happening. But there wouldn't be very long before there would be plenty of money pouring into county government. But the issue is that you have you got the federal government with their foot on us. You got the state government with their foot on us. You got a whole bunch of little streams of money coming in with something written on it that has to be spent in a certain way. And so we can't, if you were to set up a county yourself, you would probably start out very basic. We would have, we'd have a sheriff's department, we'd have a courthouse, we'd have a county assessor, the basic things that you need. But you probably wouldn't have a drunk tank. You wouldn't have a special house that was for people sleeping it off like we do now. There would be all kinds of things that we have here only because somebody put some little funding trickle grant in here. We do that because that money is available. But if we were able to pursue, if the free market was able to function here in terms of natural resources and just generally speaking, we'd be a lot better off, and the county wouldn't be a pauper county, and we wouldn't have to worry so much about what's going on in every department. But if we truly are, and if we're going to embrace this, we're in a funding emergency, why aren't we going through with a fine-tooth comb in every department and combing the pennies out of every little corner?
That is a task I'd look forward to. Let me explain why I said that it was stupid. Listen, if there's a boxing match, you're required to wear boxing gloves. Yeah, but this is a fight. I don't want to wear boxing gloves. You're required to do so in an official big league boxing match.
I understand.
Well, I want to pick up this chair and I want to hit my opponent with the chair. It's a fight, isn't it? Well, yeah, if it was that kind of fight.
I like that. Yes.
Okay. But That's not the kind of fight it is. And so you have to deal, well, hey, we're a county government. Let's talk before we get in front of the public. This whole thing about these rules, this stupid, we want to talk in a little back room and make these deals privately with our friends. We don't want to have to be scrutinized by the public.
Right.
That's one kind of government. You know, you can move to North Korea,
Right.
and we'll buy you a ticket. Okay, but if you're going to live under the law and swear to uphold the
Jail
law,
will buy you a ticket.
brother, you know, if we could get none of the above on the ballot, I would give up all this stuff about trying to reform it. That would be the biggest reform of all. None of the above is what I vote for. That's not going to happen. Now, we've run out of time again. Boy.
They'd
And
find a way around it.
all Mike's fault. Yeah. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to play back a little bit more of these goofy things that are happening. You haven't even gotten to the best part here yet. And we're going to do that tomorrow night.
Mhm.
This is a promo right now for tomorrow night. And if I can find it, I'll find the part where Keith Eck said, as an answer to Mike Jones' question, we can't possibly spend that money on the sheriff because the state says that's impossible. It must only be spent on the proper things, and so it can't go to departments. That's a paraphrase.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love videotape. They hate videotape.